Welcome to the Startup Competitors Podcast, where we talk with early-stage entrepreneurs to understand what information they use to inform product roadmap, strategy, and market differentiation.
Welcome to the Startup Competitors Podcast. Today we have Greg Kraios, founder of 250OK. Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Right on, man. Give us the elevator pitch for 250.
Yeah, 250OK is a email analytics and deliverability tools company. We basically have a suite of products that sit on top of what a traditional email service provider offers to provide people more insights into things like is your mail getting delivered to the inbox? Is your brand being phished? The hygiene of your list and data? How does your email render on different devices and clients and things like that? So it's this suite of tools that really helps people go kind of deeper into analytics and hopefully improve their email marketing programs.
And who are you typically selling to? Like, who's a customer for you guys?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple of personas that are predominant for us. One is the email marketing manager. So think of the person that's responsible for email at a company and sending out newsletters, updates, anything like that, as well as deliverability professionals. So people that work at email service providers and have to make sure their clients are adhering to best practices, doing all the right things, not angering ISPs, not getting them blacklisted, and potentially putting their other customers at jeopardy.
Help somebody who's listening, maybe if they're not familiar with you guys, get an idea of where you guys are at on the journey. Are you two guys in a garage? Are you Microsoft? Any vanity metrics you can share to kind of help paint that picture?
Yeah, no. So 250OK was formed in 2012. We're about 6 years old. I think we're closing in on 40 employees. Revenue probably won't share. Thank you. It's been a very interesting ride. When people ask how many customers we have, that's a bit of a loaded question because we have some reseller partners that bring us, hundreds or thousands of accounts. So I would just say we have thousands of accounts on our system.
Nice.
Doesn't always represent number of direct customers that we send invoices to or things like that. But yeah, man, it's growing fast. We're having a lot of fun, and it's been an insane ride. And I have no idea where it's going to take me next.
Dude, that's awesome. Okay, so let's jump into it. So when you think of competition in your space, who are you typically thinking of?
We really have one main competitor that I would say we see 90 some odd % of the time. It's Return Path.
Okay, which is interesting. I'm trying to think. I think you might be the very first out of 35 of these. You might be the very first person who's had we have this one competitor, and that's it. Every time we show up to sell, that's who we're selling against.
It's true, right? I mean, there's occasionally we see some other people, but predominantly they are 90 some odd % of. And
so I guess a couple of questions, just because I know very little about your market. Is that because they're so good? Is that because the barriers to entry in this product space are so high? Is that why? Just some conjecture. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of those things, right? So they've been in business, I believe, 18 years or so.
In the internet world, that's all of the years.
Yeah, pretty much. They've been around quite a while, and their journey has been an interesting one as well. I honestly don't think that barrier to entry was too difficult. And the reason I say that is, from a technical perspective, there's certainly other people that could probably build these things, but the barrier to entry that is difficult is subject matter expertise, really understanding the components of what goes into a platform like ours or theirs, having the relationships in the industry where we do a lot of data sharing and other things like that as well. So from that perspective, it's hard. From the, pure technical perspective, there's a lot of great things being built in the world right now that are really interesting and super crazy. And, we're not there, but we're not building an app either, right? So we're somewhere in the middle. But, they did a brilliant job and still do a really good job at sales and marketing, and they tell a great story. And, they just had the lion's share of the market. And because of that, I saw an opportunity. No market should just really have one vendor. Going to conferences, talking to people and being in the space myself for almost 15 years now, it was interesting just to hear, people talk about, some people were really happy, some people not happy at all. And a lot of people kind of just indifferent in the middle and saying, man, I wish we really had, competitor to these guys. There was a smaller company for years that we used during my time at ExactTarget called Pivotal Veracity. They got acquired, I want to say 2009 maybe or 2010. And after that, there was nobody left. Like they literally had no competition. And from my perspective, I thought their platform was good. I was a consultant. I had some customers that used it. I thought it was okay, but I, as a subject matter expert who lived in the trenches for so long, I saw so many things that were missing and thought, wow, I think I can do a better job at this on the product side, and kind of led me to being crazy enough to go do this.
That's awesome. So how do you think about differentiating from them, right? So I'm sure it's not, we're going to build what they do and do it better. It was probably, we're going to do it a little bit differently and try to go after the market that way. How, if you had to, how do you, when you're talking to a prospect, how do you differentiate what you do versus what they do?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is a few things, right? I do believe our product is superior. I think we are, a term that I latched on to years ago, I can't remember who said it, was founder DNA. And, if I use my ExactTarget experience, Scott, Peter, and Chris were, two sales guys and a marketer, and they were the most brilliant marketing and sales company I'd ever seen. If I look at Return Path, it's a little bit of the same. And they're also a very good marketing and sales company. I think our strength has been, my knowledge base, and we're a really good technology company. We're very product heavy and focused. It's where we spend most of our energies, where we invest most of our dollars. And they had a good, 12-year head start on us, in terms of product, right? So, as you get into the market and you build like one better widget of their platform and you go talk to people, some people are willing to just say, okay, I'll carve that widget out from them and use you guys for that. Other people are like, yeah, this is great, but I really want the whole thing. And so then you build the second thing and the third thing and the fourth thing, and you start getting people a little bit more comfortable in migrating over. And it's the same too with customers, right? Getting people to take that early leap and be an early adopter and turning them, into, heroes and your advocates and out there talking. And we have the advantage of being in a really small space. So for us as well, people start talking and they see the momentum, and there's mailing lists and LinkedIn groups and other things. And so, it was, I won't say easier to get into that market, but I think our situation is just very unique compared to almost anybody else out there.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Did you I'm kind of jealous that we don't have LinkedIn groups for some of our products, but so just thinking through that, so was that part of the early strategy is kind of, I think Basecamp says the Raving Fans thing, right? Go out and create the Raving Fans, build that community.
Well, I was lucky, right? So I've been part of, what people don't know is in the email, we'll call it anti-abuse world, where a lot of deliverability professionals are, it's kind of a big or small, depending on how you define dysfunctional family. And a lot of people get sucked in and never leave, right? And so you build very deep personal relationships with these people. And so for me, that was really kind of my go-to-market strategy was, I'm going to go to all these people that are email service providers managing their abuse teams and abuse desks and try to get them to be resellers, try to get them to use it internally and try to do that. So in the early part of our company, we did a really good job of selling to those people. It was really hard for us to kind of break in, to the marketing community because we were kind of an unknown. And it's still a challenge, but we're seeing a lot of momentum now in that space as well, as a lot of the marketers come on board and start to use us directly instead of the abuse or deliverability professionals. And that kind of leads into some of our product as well, and in terms of features we build and other tools that we build and things like that. But yeah, it's just a unique opportunity for us that, we didn't have to go out to the entire world and try to tell everybody who we are. It was just a very narrowly focused strategy, and it served us very well.
I'm going to tee up my next real question with hopefully a smaller question. So don't read into this one. Are you guys kind of at feature parity with Return Path now, do you think? Or are you still, is there still more you have to do to kind of catch up from that perspective?
That's a really interesting question. So, and I'll tell you why. So I think in a lot of ways, it's not an apples to apples comparison. there's certain things they do that we don't do, and we don't do them by choice, whether it's based on, philosophy on things that we think are right versus wrong, and some of it is to, where we want to drive the market to go. And, so we've stayed away from certain things. So it's not direct parity, but on the products where there is direct parity, I still believe that our platform is superior. The people that use it believe our platform is superior. That's what we hear time and time again. Yeah. And whenever we demo somebody, they usually are blown away. Like, how did I not hear about you guys? It's like, well, again, where they spend a majority of their budget on marketing and sales, we spend a majority of our budget on tech, right? And really pushing ahead in terms of product, and it's our comfort zone. It's where we live. It's where we're happy. And
So that's beautiful. So that tees up this question then. Given that and kind of where you're at, and that sounds like you're pretty happy with it. When you think about features for a year from now, right? Like, so where you guys are going, how much of your time is spent focused on maybe what competitors might be doing, which I'm sure you still have new competitors who might pop into the market at any time, right? So I'm sure you're always looking at the competitive landscape versus where you think the industry is going and kind of playing the puck where it's going to be, right? So how much, I guess, is responding to, when you think about your roadmap for the company, how much of that is responding to the market versus where you kind of see the trends going and technology going and you guys maybe leading and saying, this is where we need to be?
That's actually a great question. For us, we have, I would say, a pretty solid product roadmap for the next 3 to 5 years. And I don't plan on being a passenger. I plan on driving the market, right? So, and I look at that a few different ways. I've been around long enough and seen enough patterns throughout 15 years that I know, I believe I have a pretty firm grasp on that. And just the feedback we get from customers, the feedback we get from other people, I think we have a better handle on kind of what those problems are than many of them, do as well. Now, there's always going to be like, certain usability things or other things that will, that you just get from feedback from customers, right? But in terms of like overall platform and where we're going, what we're building, something I'm really proud of is the plan. We have not had to pivot, change, do anything. We have executed a plan to, almost a T for 6 years, and it's allowed us to double revenue year over year over year, and we're on pace to do that again this year. So until I see that slow down, we're not going to change. And, like I said, I think also there's a psychological element that people want to be led, and they want somebody to help get them there and take them there. And sometimes they don't even know they need this or this could be done until you do it for them.
Yeah. So I'm projecting here. Sounds like you have very opinionated software, right? Like that you guys take a stand and you don't want to do some things that competitors are doing.
Yep.
How do you... And obviously we see this a lot in product companies that we work with and stuff like that, right? So both opinionated and non-opinionated. And I think there's a lot of fear in developing opinionated software because you are by definition alienating some percentage of the population of potential users, right? Yep. By taking the stance that you take. Why? There's so many questions there. So like one, how often do you guys maybe refine those opinions based on customer feedback? Or, how often is there anything in the product that maybe has changed over the last couple of years or that you've changed your view on based on feedback or how the market has shifted? And then two, when you're bringing new team members on board, how do you indoctrinate them in those opinions in a way that like you can trust that as new product gets developed, it's kind of keeping true to that core?
Wow. There's a lot in all of that. On the first part, there's really a lot in there. So, I want to take a step back for a second and say, for us, I think, there's always, culture, I'm going to take a sidestep because I think it's important. Culture for us is very important. And one of the things we operate on here is, no ego. It's okay to manage up. It's okay to challenge decisions. It's okay to do that and create an environment where that's healthy, right? But, you have to do it in a way that can't be personal and back it up with data and say, hey, listen, from my perspective, I think you guys this may not be the right decision for the company, and our account managers may say that or, whatever. I think, obviously, it's, you feel even the difference when you're less than 10 people to 15 to 20, and now we're almost 40. It's like, how do we continue to scale that when you get to 100, or 200, right? And it's those type of things. But, having a culture that really says, we think we know and we're positive, but there's no ego here. I am fine to be wrong. And it starts with me. And I'll always say, like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I own it. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I'm wrong, whatever. Let's move on. That's not going to serve us very well. It's not going to serve our customers well.
Yeah.
So let's just move on and deal with it, right? And let's continue to be open-minded. I think it's okay to be opinionated, but I think if you really close yourself off from feedback and things like that, you miss a lot of things. And it's happened, to me. And some of our messaging on things has changed because I went, wow, when you do something so long and you're so sure that and everybody you talk to, even other experts, you blow their mind, then you really start thinking like, okay, nobody sees what I see and they can't possibly understand other things, but that's, a really small way of thinking. And so, I've been very fortunate to surround myself with some really good people that have helped me also step back and go, wait a second. Sometimes I think it's good to not forget what you know, but challenge what you know. And, we really have a healthy environment that allows us to do that. So, the things that we do take firm stands on, though, are things that, we continually talk about. Is this still the right thing? Are things changing in the market where that maybe should change? Or did what we say was going to happen happened? And it's usually the latter, right? So that makes us feel, pretty good as well.
Can you give me a couple of those kind of opinionated things in the product?
Yeah. So the big one for us is what everybody calls email panel data, right? So email panel data is Return Path and some other companies. What they do is partner with app companies that have access to, your mailbox via their app. And what they do is they will basically download your mailbox. They will strip out all the PII and sell some aggregate data. While I believe and our company believes that those data points are very helpful to a marketer, gives them a lot more insights, I don't believe the people that register for those apps, just like everybody. It's like, yeah, I just want the app, dude. Okay, whatever your terms are, I don't give a shit, because they're written by attorneys and they're how many ever pages long.
Right.
And they don't really understand what they're doing. Right. And so while I think I just don't agree with it. And our company doesn't agree with it. And we've stayed away with it from it. And as things like GDPR happen and privacy is the thing, that everybody's focusing on now, which we've said was going to happen for the longest time, it is. Unfortunately, the U.S. is so far behind the rest of the world because I don't want to get into like a government conversation, but I always say I'm like the rest of the world has governments that I think are built to protect people. We have a government that's built to protect companies. And I think that shows. And now with, Facebook, Cambridge Analytica, panel data was just a huge thing in July because Wall Street Journal said, oh, hey, Gmail users, did you know that this is happening? And Return Path got named. And so did, another company. And, here they are. And it started getting a lot of press and was picked up all over the world. And even to the point where, Congress is like, hey, maybe we should, talk to Larry Page and ask him if he knows this is going on. Right. And so, again, I think anytime there's additional data points and transparency that can help, anyone send a better message that people want to receive and engage with, I think that's a great thing. So the data points I think are helpful. The way they go about getting them and the way they position it and the way they sell it, I don't agree with at all. And so we've intentionally stayed away from that.
Awesome. Great tangibility. Thanks for, and by the way, like great round trip on that too. Like we had this theory, turns out, so it's a lot of recent relevant data that shows that maybe it was a correct theory. And that's awesome.
Well, we released, it'll kind of go back to this, but we released a blog post, it's been over a year ago, and it was very detailed, was very, I think, fair and scientific. It was very, data driven. We cited our sources and we just called out some things. We said, listen, this isn't us saying this. These are things that we found out on the internet that anybody could go find. We cited the sources and we had multiple people read it to make sure the tone was right before we released it, because it's easy to say when you have a very strong opinion on something to say, well, yeah, of course those guys tell you that, Mr. Prospect. It's because they don't do it. Of course they're telling you that. Why wouldn't they tell you that? If they could do it, they would. Well, we could do it. And just like the other things we've done in the product, I believe if we did do it, we'd do it bigger and better than anyone else. Like we've done other things to date. And I'm pretty bullish on that. However, we said, I don't think this is right. again, I don't think we should go down this path. I think here's the flaws in all the data. A lot of it, says this is even return path quoting this on a white paper, about the majority of those accounts being secondary accounts and other things like that. So you have multiple email accounts, right? Before Gmail really became predominant, before tabs and before everything, everybody had multiple accounts. Oh, this is my personal account. This is my work account. This is my spam account. Yep. Everybody had different multiple accounts, right? And so as a marketer, do they know which account they're delivering to? Yes or no? No, usually they don't. So while there's a lot of good stuff in this data, I'm like, it by itself isn't really representative of much. You need the context to go with it. You need to marry it up with other things to say, does it match these other data points in this story or not? And, Ryan Feniger, who's our CTO, on a call, it's probably been 3 years ago, said something that I just loved and latched onto. He said, all these data points work together in concert or conflict to tell a story. And that's true, right? But everybody wants one data point to say, this is what happened. This is what was wrong. Well, that's you don't do that. In the email world, it's how all these little things work together. And that really tells you and helps you hone in on where is the real problem? What is your problem? How can you get better?
How big of a component is that positioning and those opinions in the sales cycle when you're talking to a prospect? Or to say that a different way, when somebody on your team is selling, is it normally like the classic enterprise feature to feature comparison and they're going through that? Or are you trying to change hearts and minds in the sales cycle to really differentiate why and how you're different?
It's situational.
Okay.
It's how strong are their opinions about that? How valuable is this to you? How do you use this? And that's another thing we reason why we stayed away from it, to be honest with you, because we'll use the competitive intelligence stuff, right? And so everybody's like, oh yeah, well the reason also panel is great. I'll use two brands that everybody knows, Lowe's and Home Depot. Okay. And let's say that Home Depot is using the panel data to, see how Lowe's performs. Well, okay, if you see that Lowe's is having a deliverability problem, what do you do different? And a lot of times we get, well, I don't know, it's just good to know. Okay, well, if you see that they're selling lawnmowers this week, do you go try to sell more lawnmowers, or do you look at your inventory, or do you do it geographically, or do you do, how's this work in? And much like us versus return path, and kind of tying this back around to the question you asked me earlier, I think there's a very fine line between healthy competitive intelligence and unhealthy. And I think if you put yourself in a position where you're looking at them more than you're focusing on yourself, you'll always be a follower, right? And so what I tell our guys is very simple. I'm like, it's good to hear, I guess, what they're doing or whatever, but let's not focus on it, because I see so many things that we need to be better at, and we're not operating anywhere close to our full potential. And we're still only 40 people. So that's not going to get easier as we're, 50, 100, whatever, right? So good to know. Let's just try to keep it at a healthy balance, but always focus internally, and let's really just be the best that we can be. And wherever the chips fall, they fall.
That's awesome. When you bring, I'm going to circle back a couple of questions to onboarding new people, which you talked a little bit about the culture side.
Yep.
I'm also super interested because I think of what you do here in this company. While I'm a software guy, so I get email deliverability. I'm guessing there's a lot of people who don't, right? When you start talking about this, they're like, wait, what?
Sure.
What do you do? Explain that again. And I can imagine, even though you're a software company, so you have a technical team, how much education is there in just like the business and the business that you're in and how it works when you bring somebody in? Do you either, as a 40-person team, do you find that you can just hire people with industry knowledge, or is it more like, nope, we know that as part of bringing somebody in, we're gonna have to explain what is deliverability, what is the business that we're in, and then how are we unique and special? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it's a combination, really. One of the things that for me is the most humbling and flattering is, as I look at the names of people that work at our company that have industry experience, they are the people that I had a lot of respect for, that I thought were some of the brightest people out there, that weren't. I'll take a step back for a second. In our space, in the deliverability space, it's again just a very small kind of group of people. Even in that small group of people, my feeling has always been, and I say this to everybody in the space, and I'll say it here, for the world to hear. But I'm like, I really think 10% of people in our space really know their shit. I think 70% regurgitate what that 10% say. They know a fair amount, but they're nowhere close to that, that top 10%. I think 20% are almost worthless, to be honest. And, they can fumble through it and they can regurgitate what the regurgitators say, but, they don't really understand how things work. They're not forward thinking. They're not any of that, right? They're the button pushers, if you will, whatever, right? So that takes a very small group of people and boils it down to an even smaller subset of people. But I think we're, hiring really intelligent people. But above and beyond that, I think we're hiring just the best human beings. And I'm super proud of when people come here, I actually tell them like, welcome to the family. And it's amazing to watch this group of people when somebody struggles, they are all running to go pick that person up. And it's not something we have to tell them to do or whatever. They're just good human beings. And as we bring people in, I'm like, I can teach anybody email. We can teach you email. We have a ton of experts. If you're willing to learn and invest the time, you might even regret that you're going to learn so much about email. It's honestly true, right? It's a sickness. I have it. We're super passionate about it around here, and it probably stems from me and my passion about it. But, I can teach anybody email. I can't teach them to be a good person. I can't teach them to be a good teammate. I can't teach them to care about a customer. And when they do come in and people ask me, especially as you're an entrepreneur and you start doing well and people want to know about your success, and like, why are you successful? Like, how did you do that? What advice could you give me? I can tell you in one word: care. If you care, everything just happens from that, right? You care about the work you do. The product is going to be amazing because our team cares. We're going to treat our customers well because we care. There's times we make decisions that are financially terrible for us with customers because it's the right thing to do. I never really wanted the pressure, and you can take a lot of different paths in funding and other things with a company, right? And, we are probably, some could argue we might be too Midwestern at heart. We're too conservative, but for us, and I used to get caught up in that a lot. Are we underfunded? Should we go get money? We don't really need money. Luckily, I had Ryan, who has a ton of experience in this, right? And who's worked for hedge funds, who's worked for, venture funds, who I met as he was leaving Elevate as a CTO of Elevate, and who was helping the state invest in a ton of deals and had an amazing track record during his time there. So I have him to bounce that stuff off of. And, when you're, just maniacal about product like we are, and roadmap and vision, Ryan really helps me in the context. Like, okay, if we were to go do that, here's what they want, and here's how this is going to play out. And he's right, and so because of our unique market opportunity, we haven't needed a lot of capital, and we do extremely well. And it's allowed us to still have that freedom, to steer our own ship and do the things we want to do without the pressure, of some of these, other companies. Even though they may have the best intentions and they want to help and do all that, I'm like, man, if I wanted a job, I'd go get one.
Yeah.
And that's not why any of us here are really kind of doing this, especially the early group of people. So we've had kind of that luxury, and just because of our unique market opportunity and who we are as a group, we haven't really had to go down a path that makes us uncomfortable.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I want you to forecast out for me. I'm going to ask you to do this in two ways. One, talk a little bit about over the next 2 to 3 years, where do you see the industry going? Like, what are some of the trends that you think, like you mentioned GDPR and stuff like that, which is today. What do you think are maybe some of the next things that we're going to see as an industry that are going to help change the landscape that you're operating in? And then the second part of that question is, how do you guys think you're going to change things that you're doing to address those?
Yeah, it's funny because, at the end of the day, our industry is driven by the mailbox providers and the features that they build and the things they do, right? And so it's everything from authentication to reputation to protecting your brand against phishing, to how they display email, to code they may start letting you use an email they haven't done before.
Is that coming? I didn't know that was coming.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff coming. We have a lot of NDAs, so I'm not sure what I can talk about or whatever. But there's there's really cool things, and I think what. It's funny, right? Because we all heard for a point in time, the email's dead, it's dying, it's going to be replaced. And it's funny because every time they said that, the companies they named that were going to kill it were the ones that sent the most email. Why? Because that's your online nerve center to everything, right?
Yes.
And so you may have something on this network over here or over there or with this company or this brand or whatever, and they're all going to send you an email. And so, that experience and that email client is the first thing that you think about. Also, in the business world, you're not going to Snapchat a prospect. It's not going to happen, right? And so you look at other things, as well. But when people think about email, I think what they get hung up on is how it's transmitted, right? And so, will SMTP, the protocol behind email, is that outdated? Yeah. Is it doing things it was never intended to do? Yeah. But is it cheap? Yes. Is it open? Yes. Can anybody do it? Yes. Right? Can anybody do it well? Not so much. But, it's really the mailbox providers, and especially as we've seen things from them, what we've seen in I would say probably the last 5 years has been, it started with machine learning, right? And people trying to do stuff, Gmail doing things on an account basis versus globally, right? And so making decisions on what Greg wants versus Mike versus Ryan versus whoever, and saying, hey, this one brand sends these messages. Greg opens every third one. Mike opens every 10th one. Ryan never opens. He doesn't seem to care. Well, why should we put it in Ryan's inbox? He might be overloaded. And we've seen fundamental changes. When Gmail released tabs, every marketer in the world freaked out. Oh my God, the sky's falling. Nobody's going to check that tab. Now our messages are going to go in this black hole. And what a lot of people found is most companies did better because now they weren't, filtered out by all the noise, right? They were signaled.
You're not competing for my primary attention. When I'm ready to pay attention to your brand, I can click over there.
I can go there and do it, right? And they're going to continue down that path because they realize they have the same goal in mind. It's the goal that every email marketer should have in mind as well, which is it's a human being there and they want them to have a very good brand experience with you. And if you're not providing them that, they want to make sure they don't see it because at the end of the day, they don't want to lose a subscriber either, right? And so they're going to continue to develop features, that they protect those people first and foremost, whether it's through things like, GDPR that have happened in Europe that they say, you know what? If we're going to build this and try to have to do things on our side to protect users in Europe, that seems complicated to just do it in one spot. Maybe we should just do that globally and just whatever and be ahead of the law. Who cares, right? It's kind of the same way at ExactTarget. We would have customers when I ran deliverability operations and ISP relations, they would come to us and say, well, why is this ISP blocking my mail? I'm CAN spam compliant. Who cares, dude? Seriously, because CAN spam says nothing about permission. And the joke always was that you can spam if you fit within these guidelines. So it's the perfect name for it. Probably not the intended name,
right?
But it was the perfect name, right? And so that's the bare minimum, dude. So you just don't get sued by the government. Mailbox providers don't give a shit about that. It doesn't matter. All they care about is, does this person want it or not? And what signals do I have to figure out if they want it or not?
Yeah.
Right. And so they're really driving everything. So, we saw it with kind of machine learning starting to happen. And then what happened is as they built all that out is we saw consolidation of networks. So what it took to operate mailboxes. So if you're an AT&T customer, you probably noticed that Yahoo hosts their mail, right? Well, why is AT&T going to continue to have the infrastructure costs, the human being costs, all these costs to maintain mailboxes, which they all used to do in the early days when Yahoo can do it for, 20%. It doesn't make sense. It's the same way that when you had an ISP account in the 90s, I'm in my 40s, but when you had that, everybody would set up their an account at an ISP. Now, who really uses their ISP account?
Right.
In the US, not many. And now we're seeing that trend start to happen across Europe because in Europe, they actually did, but they're, 5 years behind-ish, I kind of feel like, right? But you're starting to see more of that starting to slowly work its way across there as well. And so now you have machine learning, but consolidation of networks means more data to feed the machine so they get more accurate and they learn better. And so 10 years ago, 15 years ago, false positives were this huge problem because spam was continuing to increase, and it's like, okay, spam is 80% of total mail volume. Then it's 85, then it's 90. It just kept going up and up and up. And by spam, I mean not mail that people don't want, but this is really bad stuff like infected, botnet type stuff, right? A Windows machine or some machine on some network has a virus in it. It doesn't know that it's just relaying out all this spam, and it's really bad stuff, right? And it's taking people to either it's installing malware on their machine, just a whole lot of badness, right? And then you get into phishing, right? Where it's like, okay, I'm going to, sign up for this brand. I'm going to rip off their HTML. It's going to look like them. It's going to feel like them. I can know that I can get that to a user's inbox. And then I'm going to get you to a landing page that looks like the login page. And all I'm really doing is capturing your real username and password. And then I'm going to go drain your bank account.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that we've had in our industry is DMARC. And what DMARC really is your authentication policy. There came a standard, and how the standard came about was PayPal, heavily phish brand, right? I mean, everybody uses PayPal. Majority of people do, and so even when like mailbox providers, Google, Yahoo, were getting it right and say, okay, no, this is a phish. I'm going to put it in the spam folder. Users go in there and they go, okay, here we go again. Google's dumb. They got it wrong. This is really PayPal. Right. So they go in. They think it's
not spam.
Yeah, they mark it as not spam. They open it. They click on the link. They go to a landing page. They type in their credentials. And then, whatever, this isn't whatever. Next thing I know, their real PayPal account's been drained. And PayPal goes to them and they're like, guys, look, here's how we authenticate our mail. And here's the IPs we send mail from. This is really us. If it's not from us, even when you get it right, just delete it. I would rather take the risk that my user doesn't get a real message rather than them engage with a bad one.
Interesting.
Right? And so out of that came a standard that now protects everybody, that every brand can implement, that helps them really say, here, I authenticate my mail with these two technologies. If it fails authentication, here's what I want you to do with it, Mr. Mailbox Provider. So you can openly publish your policy on how you want them to handle your mail in DNS. And they can go out and query that and decide what to do with it. What they've also done is increase transparency. So some ISPs participate and they will, in part of this DNS record, you can put in an email address and they will just start sending XML data to you as well, which is one of our products. What we do is parse that, put an UI and show them like, okay, here's all things that fail authentication. Here's the sources they come from. Is that really you or not? And so if you're a big brand and you see all these things, you're like, I don't know, maybe I have an offshore team. Is that them? Maybe. Or I have this other application and it's not authenticating mail and I didn't realize that. And that's a vulnerability. So we're seeing things come out of that too, which are increased transparency, which I feel is really important. And I think that is going to continue, as we go forward. But it's really those guys who are in control. But it's just been an interesting cycle that a lot of people don't get to see or have visibility into. But it was really cool to watch throughout the time I've been in email, various people on all sides of the industry that may be competitors, maybe whatever, come together for the good of the internet and really build standards to help people and protect people and just put all their other crap aside, right?
I'm going to skirt some third rail topics, so you're free to punt
sure.
At any point here. Are you or the company, are you guys asked to be involved in either public policy or standards or like into what does that look like when somebody approaches you and says, hey, you guys are part of this infrastructure. We'd love your input. We'd love your, what does that, what form does that take?
Yeah. So we're not really approached, right? So there's a few working groups in our industry that are predominant. And I have been a part of those personally. I've been very passionate about those since actually I got to see a fair amount of them start, the ones that are still going strong and doing pretty well. And so, that's always just something I've been passionate about. I attend all these events and it's just good to be there and be part of those conversations. Again, there's mailing lists, there's private channels, there's all these things, right? And since it's such a small community, we always have a presence, but we're also hiring a lot of other people that have been, part of that as well and have a lot of respect and people know them and they know not only, again, like how smart they are, but, what kind of people they are as well. So I think it's important if you're in any industry that you're passionate about and there's any sort of trade association or whatever, that is helping to drive things. I think it's always in your best interest to be there, to participate and to try to be part of that conversation. Because again, you don't want to be a passenger, right? And if you have a strong opinion, or even if it's just to learn or get educated or hear, what other companies have done, if this affects them, if it doesn't, get other perspectives. All of that are very healthy things, right? So, it's something that we're passionate about. We invest a lot in that. We'll continue to invest a lot in that. And that's something that will never change as long as I'm here and, kind of get to steer the ship.
Yeah. How much of your business is domestic versus overseas?
That's a great question too, because it's changing. Overwhelming majority is domestic, but Europe is really hot for us right now. But we also work with a lot of brands that are international, right? So, that's, in our world, the company may be primarily based here, but they are sending mail to a lot of mail in some cases, to Europe, to APAC, to, other places. And it's interesting to see from a mailbox provider point of view, and where some of those other countries are, just kind of how far behind some of them are in different things. And it's kind of like reliving the past over again. And you kind of watch them fumble through it. And some of our industry organizations have been really good at branching out. I think Europe is always the closest to us. And then you start to look after that, I'd probably guess South America. And then APAC is probably, the least close to us, right? And the farthest behind. And so, it's always a thing is you try to get people in those emerging communities to be part of your community and they come and say, hey guys, look, we've already been through all that. Come be part of this. Come be part of the conversation. Let's do that. And a lot of times it's not only like, it could be geographical reasons. It could be cultural reasons. It could be, there's a lot of barriers there as well. So, but, we are seeing more participation. And we do see more people, kind of coming together. And as we all know, I think the world's just becoming a smaller place.
Dude, we're way over time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we can keep going, man. I can do this all day.
If people want to get a hold of you to ask you questions, or if they want to connect with 250OK to learn more, where can they do that?
250ok.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you're thinking of launching a SaaS product, Startup Competitors can provide data on your closest competitors, survey potential users, or provide other product validation services. Learn more at startupcompetitors.com.